So it's great here to be. It's great to be here in this room with you guys. For the people that are online, fantastic. What really happened was this. Trent knew he was doing a series on the struggle bus. He said, "Billy, you're the pastor I know that struggles the most. Would you come do one of these messages for me?" Well, I said, sure. So look, backing up in my life, I was 29 years old, living in Memphis, Tennessee, just graduated from seminary, which is just nothing but a graduate school that trains men and women to be pastors of existing churches. But in a strange series of events, I was actually in the process of talking to an organization in Atlanta that started new churches in growing areas like Palm Coast all over the United States and in Canada. And so they had been talking to me about the possibility of doing that. And they had taken me and my wife through like a month of different paperwork stuff you had to go through, writing different papers, really getting to know you. When you pass that part of it, they actually brought you to Atlanta and then did 2 stages for 2 days of interviews with multiple people trying to find out, are you the kind of person we want to be involved in starting a church? So all of that happened. We made our way back to Memphis, Tennessee, and I was actually working. I was all the way through seminary. I built saddles to support my family. My wife ran a typing business out of the home. And I got a call at the saddle shop. So they called me to the phone. Back then when phones had cords that attached to the wall, way back then. So I'm on the phone and this guy from Atlanta says, "Hey, look, I'm calling to tell you that we are not going to approve you for this process. But we're not going to tell you why." And I said, that's not okay with me. For you not to approve me, fine, but to not tell me why. And he goes, "Well, the thing was that you told us about your past and your addiction and your struggle with porn through the years." And I said, "Yeah, you asked me on paper and you asked me when I was there to tell you, is there any issues that may affect you when it comes to starting and pastoring a church?" And I absolutely told you the truth, that porn had been a big part of my background, and it was one of those things that I'd made a lot of progress in and learned a lot about growing in my relationship with Jesus. I told you that. And then now you're saying that you're not going to approve me. And he said, "Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but that's the way it is." So I said to him, I said, "Listen, it is not people like me who come through this process that tell you the truth you need to worry about. It's all those other people that were in Atlanta with me. They told you everything was great. They had their act together, didn't have any problems. Walking with Jesus was like a day in the park for them. Those are the people you need to worry about." And he said, "Well, maybe so." And I actually really said to the guy, "I know so." And then I hung up the phone. But now I was on the struggle bus again for like the 900th episode. So I'm there. I'm angry. I am hurt. Married. I have a 2-year-old. I have one on the way, or one that had just been born, but Kim was pregnant during this whole process of doing this, and now we had a newborn. And I'm sitting there and I'm struggling. And I'm just, I felt like a failure. I felt all kind of shame because I had failed. That is what had happened. But I tell you, the thing that I was most conflicted by as I went back working on saddles while I'm thinking through this whole process, and what I was conflicted about is in the 12 years of my journey of getting to know the principles that were in the Bible, what the Bible talked about was Jesus saying, "Look, being open and honest and real about your spiritual journey, and I will accept you just like you are. I will take you right where you are, and I forgive you, and I walk you through becoming somebody who's a transformed person." But yet in the culture that we lived in and in the churches that I was in and had gone to, there was a different message. It was, you better get good at blaming and you better get good in hiding if you're going to succeed in this world. So I was very much in conflict. And I realized I struggled there. I go, the big question was going to be, what am I going to do next?
They say I'm strong, they say I'm calm, they say I got myself in mind. But they don't see the panic tucked behind this smile of mine. I hear my jokes and think I'm good, think I'm clear and free. But I'm still trying to outrun the man inside me. Well, I play the part, I hit my marks, drink I nod, I grin. But there's a version of me scream just beneath the skin. Well, you love the light, I live in shade. Every laugh I fake, it's pain. I'm not the man I pretend to be. I'm the one you trust, the one you see. All behind his face there's fear and fire, broken engine, resting wire. I shake alone, I bleed in peace. I hide the parts I can't release. You see the smile and not the plea. I'm not the man I pretend to be. Well, I've been the rock for people lost, but no one knows I'm cracked. Well, I've been the hero holding guns with nightmares on my back. Gonna see a fighter, I feel strong. The day I stand ain't ever saw the fall. Well, I prayed for silence, begged for noise. I fight with crazy war the poise. But late at night when the lights go dim, I barely recognize him. I'm not the man I pretend to be. I'm the one who always says I'm fine then leaves. Well, I built a house from smoke and stone, but it ain't a home when you're alone. There's a version of me no one meets. So buried deep beneath each sheet, you see control, I see debris. I'm not the man I pretend to be. I'm not the man I pretend to be. Well, I'm just tired of hiding me. But if you ever saw the cracks, would you still love me after that? Well, I ain't proud, but I'm still breathing, still here, still barely believing that someday maybe you'll see not who I should know, but who I need to be.
So I'm sure you can tell by that song, what we're talking about today is when you get on the struggle bus of pretending. A struggle bus of when you really know that you're not something on the outside that you're pretending to be, that you're very different than what's on the inside. So that's what we're diving in today. And when you're pretending to be something on the outside, you're not on the inside, you are conflicted. Many people deeply think and feel, if people really knew me, they would know I'm a fraud, I'm a poser, I'm an imposter. So often what you knew, what you really think, and what you knew is if you stood up and told the absolute truth, that what you'd say is, I'm on the struggle bus of pretending. I'm on the struggle bus because I'm pretending. Deep down, you know, if someone you trusted looked you in the eyes and told you the truth, they would say things to you just like this. Stop pretending. Stop pretending you don't struggle with some hurt or bad habit or hang up, because you just do. Stop pretending your money proves how successful the real you is, because it just doesn't. Stop pretending you can handle everything alone, because you just can't. Stop pretending that you're going to figure out how to solve this by yourself, because you just won't. Stop pretending following Jesus is easy, because it just isn't. Stop pretending that you aren't going to do that thing again, because you just will. Stop pretending you like everybody, because you just don't. Stop pretending everything with your family is all good, because it just isn't. Stop pretending you're a good person, because you know you're not. Stop pretending you're fine, because you just aren't. Now, let me be very clear from the beginning here today. I'm talking to those of you who just resonated with that song that Matt and the band did by Warren Torn. Matt asked me when I introduced this to him a couple of weeks ago, how'd you find this? I said, I use YouTube Music. The playlist just fed this to me. I didn't even know anything. When I started listening to this song a while back, there were like 200,000 views now. Now there's 1.2 million listens to this song. And so it's a whole thing of, wow, people are resonating with the reality. Those of you who are honestly saying to yourself what was in this song, I'm just tired of hiding me. If you're a high school softball player and you're just tired of hiding, I'm talking to you. If you are who people would call a successful business owner in Palm Coast and you're tired of wearing a mask, this message is for you. You might be retired. You might be newly widowed, a recent college graduate. You might be 16, 26, 56, or 76. You might go by he or she or them. You could be employed or out of a job. You could be a person who says you've walked with Jesus for 13 years, or someone who says you used to walk with Jesus, but you haven't in a long time. Or you could be a person who's watching this online right now for the first time and you aren't even sure God is real. Regardless of your personal descriptions and resumes or stage of life, I'm just telling you, there is only one thing I'm interested in today, captured by that song. Are you tired of hiding? If you are, then you're in the right place. Now, I promise I'm going to end up back at my original story. One thing I cannot stand is when I'm listening to someone talking, they tell this story halfway through and you're going, I wonder what the punchline is, and they never get around to it. I'm not going to do that. But right now, again, right out of the song, if I'm going to help those of you who know you are, like was saying there, cracked inside and are screaming just beneath the skin, you need to know some more about my background with hiding and pretending. So let me give you some history. When I was in sixth grade, the church I was raised in had confirmation classes. How many of you have been through confirmation classes? Okay, some of you. A lot of you may not have even heard of that. Back in the church that I went to, this was a once-a-week classes for a couple of months when you were in sixth grade, where you learned all this stuff about God and Jesus and church and those kind of things. And at the end, there was an unstated expectation that you would then officially join the church. So my parents wanted me to do it. I told my parents I'd go, but if whatever spiritual thing that was supposed to happen didn't happen, then I was not going to join the church. Well, I went and it didn't. Everyone else became official members down in front of the church auditorium on a Sunday morning, everyone but me. And I really do remember thinking back then, I was sitting out there just like you are, all these people lying down the front, and I remember thinking, look, good for y'all. I hope this is real. But what I know is most of you are pretending. I hear you in groups with adults around give all these spiritual and right answers. But I know many of you because I hang out with you. And I know that I'm lying all the time and you're lying too. I know you're cheating because you're cheating with me. I know you're stealing because you're stealing with me. I know you're looking at porn because we talk about it. You're looking at porn just like I'm looking at porn. I'm not any better than you, but I'm not going to pretend when I get pushed in a corner. Then circling back to the setup of my first story today, all through middle school and high school, porn was nearly a daily part of my life, so much so that I came to my own conclusion. This is what the real broken struggle was with me. I couldn't control my own thought life. I kept going, look, I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be addicted and held to anything. And I couldn't control my actions and thoughts. And I kept giving over to things. I kept giving over to this whole deal. And I knew, man, I don't want to be doing this. I was completely hiding and talking to no one about it. For me, all of this came to a direct focus in a church service just like this when I was about to turn 17. I was going to church about once a month back then just to keep my parents off my back, okay? Some of you can relate to that. I walked in that morning and found out that there was a football coach that was going to be speaking at our church. It was Bobby Bowden. Some of you know him. He passed away a few years ago. Legendary coach at FSU. Well, at that time, he'd only been down at Florida State for just a couple of years, and he was speaking at our church. And I was like, but dude, what, a football coach? And it was so captivating to me because he just stood up there and he told stories. And that day, he brought me down to a defining moment for me, a monumental struggle bus moment on whether or not I would pretend. But for me, it was kind of a reverse angle decision about pretending. Now, here's what I mean by that. What I knew by that day in my life, that I was tired of being me. Just like we sang. I was tired of being me. I was tired of struggling. I was tired of where my own leadership in life had taken me. I was ready for a change, but I also had decided I wasn't going to be a spiritual pretender. I wasn't going to pretend to follow Jesus. Either I was going all in or I wasn't going in at all. I knew that what I did next was what was going to matter the most. Now, what happened in church that day was it never happened in the church that I went in. And Coach Bowden, he talked about, hey, look, if you want to make a commitment to transition the driver's seat of your life over to Jesus, I want you to come down, walk down to the front here, talk to me and pray with the pastor. Okay, that was just like weird, never happened. But I was like, at that day, I sat there and went, I'm doing this. No one else responded to that. I was the only one. And so, but I didn't care. It was no longer about anyone else. The struggle for me was coming to an end. So I made the leap. And just like the band said, I decided I was going to show you the cracks. And it was going to be up to you whether or not you would still love me after that. I wasn't proud, but I was still breathing, still here. And I was now barely believing that it was no longer going to be about who I showed, but who I needed to be. Now that was the setup that led me into a life of following Jesus in his ways. Now at that point, I went in my senior year in high school, and with the help of some friends, I entered the journey of learning the teachings of Jesus in the Bible. So when one of my friends told me to memorize parts of it, I did it. And so the first sentence that I ever remember memorizing in the Bible, we're bringing up on the screens here for you. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. So I memorized that and kept saying it. And here's what I learned during my journey that last year in high school. I learned that verse is true. I really did feel different on the inside and actually wanted to live a different kind of life. It was so real that several months into the school year, there was this girl that I'd been in school with since first grade, and she comes walking up to me in the hall. So I went to a high school that's like the size of Matanzas or FPC, pretty big high school, and I didn't have any classes with this girl that term, but she comes up to me, stops me in the middle of the hall, and says, I hear you're different. And I said, she said it in a way that I knew, okay, that's kind of positive. I don't, not I hear you're different, you weirdo whack job. And I said, yeah, I really am. And now let me say this. I was not going around carrying a Bible under my arm, preaching to people in school. I wasn't acting all super spiritual and holy and religious. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just being me. But the new me was a lot less self-focused and self-centered than the old me. I really was a new guy, and people were talking about it. So I knew that new creation, the old is gone, the new is come, that thing was real. But there was a second thing. Mixed in with all that, I learned that this verse was only part of the reality. The other part was that I still regularly got on and off the struggle bus. Now, we're going to bring up part of the Bible here in a minute that Trent used to kick this series off a couple of weeks ago. And just to set this thing up, if you're new to the Bible, again, watch it online, you might be here, and everybody starts off knowing nothing about the Bible, whether you're 5 when you start that journey or 85, okay? And there are 2 main parts of the Bible, the Old Testament part, which was written before the time of Jesus, and the New Testament part that's written about Jesus and after his time, and stories and teachings of Jesus. And so what's interesting is all of the Bible is broken down, those 2 parts, in what we call books. And the New Testament part, there's one book called Romans, and it was written by the Apostle Paul. Paul wrote most of the New Testament of the Bible, but he wrote this particular book of Romans because Roman Empire ruled the world then, so that's where the name came from. But this was like a term paper. He sat down and went, I'm going to write you a discourse term paper on the spiritual journey of what Jesus is like, what it means if he transforms you, and how you put this stuff into practice. Okay, so you get it? That's a different approach. And this is what he says halfway through. The trouble is with me, for I am all too human, a slave to sin. I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. Now listen. You don't have to have a seminary degree. You don't have to be any kind of schooled person to go, that I understand. That is my life. I sat right over there 2 weeks ago, and because every time I read that, I think this is just so me, okay? And I sat right over there, and Trent brought that up, and I went, that's so me. That is the struggle bus section right over there. Those of you in that section, you have the honest transparency to sit there and go, struggle bus. Rest of you guys are posers, okay? Now, here's all I'm saying. On a positive note, with that struggle part, what I grasped early on in my Jesus journey was, I want to do what is right. Before that, I absolutely did not want to do what was right. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and often that was I wanted to do whatever I could get away with. What this Romans 7 battle highlighted me, though, was the heightened struggle of pretending. Because I'm getting to know this Jesus stuff. I'm seeing stuff in the Bible. I'm going, yeah, I'm a person who's now following Jesus, but then I'm not acting like it sometimes. So the tension began. Am I going to pretend? Well, I moved on from high school and through college. I got married and then seminary, and we started having kids along the way. And all that time, I made it a regular habit to learn what was in the Bible. Although I was regularly on and off the struggle bus. In fact, I had a struggle bus Metro card, okay? So it was just one of those things of on and off all the time. I also made it a regular practice, though, to keep growing in my love for God, my love for people, and living it out. And somewhere along the way of life, I became very familiar with this next part of the Bible that also was out of the book of Romans written by Paul when he gets to the application part in this term paper. And I became familiar with this and became one of my favorites. So here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what he wants you to do and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. Now, there's a lot in that one paragraph. There's tension here. There's growth possibility. There is a part God says he's done and that he will continue to do. There's a part he's going, I am responsible for this. But there is a part that is our responsibility. In fact, one way to capture one of the big principles here is this. What I choose to do next is what matters the most. Now, we're going to say that out loud together. And you need to say it with full passion or we're going to have to do it 3 or 4 times. Ready? Go. What I choose to do next is what matters the most. Now, this is an ongoing, everyday, ordinary journey. What I choose to do next is what matters most. If you're on the struggle bus of pretending right now, what are you going to do next? I mean, you know what you did last night. You know what you did last week. You know what you've been doing this year. You know what it is that you've been hiding. You know what it is that you've been blaming other people for. And the real issue is only this. What are you going to do next? That's the main thing that matters. Now, back to Memphis and my phone call at work with that person in Atlanta. So again, I'm working at a saddle shop, building saddles. I get off the phone. I'm back there. I'm grappling through this, and I'm in tension because I have been rejected for real. And the only question that really mattered was, what would I choose to do next? So one of the things that happened over the next days as I got home and started talking to my wife, talking to my friends, is I had connections with a number of other pastors back then. And they said, look, there's an appeal process for this thing. I said, I don't want to appeal to this thing. They rejected me, those losers. I don't want anything to do with this. But they said, look, you need to have the right attitude about this. You need to walk through the process. So I got in touch with them. They said, look, here's what you need to do. You need to go through a counselor that we recommend, and you need to go talk to them. And if they end up signing off on you, we'll reconsider this application. So I went to a counselor, and I got into his office, and I just sat there and started talking to him about my whole life for a solid hour. I talked to him about my issues with porn. I talked to him about the addiction thing. I told him a lot of the stuff that I told you today and more. I talked about other struggles that I had. I talked about my spiritual growth and journey and things I was learning with Jesus. And I just absolutely, all my hurts, habits, and hang-ups, I talked to him about it. Then that came to an end in an hour. So since an hour, it was an abbreviated version of my hurts, habits, and hang-ups. But that's what I did. And he said, hey, tell you what, we're out of time here. You come back next week, and then we'll talk about this. So I go away for a week, and then I was driving back that day. I got out of my truck, and here's what I decided in that drive that second week. I'm not going to keep doing this. I know that I'm being honest and real. I know that I'm trying to do what Jesus wants me to do. I know that I have a Metro card to the struggle bus. And I know that I'm not pretending, and I know that God, he can guide me to do whatever he wants me to do. If he wants me to start a church in some growing area in the United States, he can make it happen with or without this agency. So I was going in, and I was going to tell that guy that. I get in, I sit down in his office, and he says, before I could say anything, he goes, hey, I've already written you a letter of recommendation, and here's why. I've been looking through your notes. I've been thinking about this all week. He goes, without you even knowing it, you've walked through the first 10 steps of the 12-step recovery process. He goes, most of the time I can't get people to do 2 steps of this recovery process. And you've been walking through this whole thing, and it's really amazing. So I have no problem giving you full endorsement. And so he gives me the letter, and they actually approved me. But let me say this. The last thing he said to me before I walked out of the office was, he goes, look, I'm going to give you some advice here. You're going to be a pastor. You're going to start a church. You need to quit being so real and open and honest. That's what he said. You can't be a pastor and tell people you struggle with porn. In fact, you can't be a pastor and tell people anything really deep and authentic. That's going to cause problems with the people in your church and the leadership with church. And if you want to move on with this journey and be successful, you better tone it back. So I thanked him, and I walked out in the parking lot, and I was getting in my truck. No joke. I got in my truck, and I don't know if I said this out loud or it was just in. I said, God, I'm not doing that. What I know is this. Jesus, you came to this earth, and you were open and honest and real, and you poured your life out for people, and they killed you for it, and they crucified you. And you say to follow you. If I get crucified for being open and honest and real, I'm just going to get crucified. But I'm not playing this game. And so, Lord, you got a lot of problems you got to tackle here, because I'm going to keep being me. Now, 3 years later, it all worked out, and God moved me and my family to Palm Coast, Florida, with other good friends and their family, and we started a new church here, and that church would eventually, as Derek said, give rise to a newer church that would call itself Epic, okay? Let's get real, though, about this whole thing. It's great when you can hear a story and in 5 minutes it goes from terrible to, hey, this worked out. But let's get real about this. That feeling that a lot of you have right now that you want to get off the struggle bus of pretending, where you're saying, I want that, and you're feeling it right now, is not the same thing as taking steps to actually get off the struggle bus. Those are two separate things. So let's get practical. I want everyone in here and online to do something very practical right now, and I want you to take off one of your shoes. Everybody take a shoe off. Yeah, you're freaking out already here. I should have changed my socks this morning. I should have taken a shower. Now, it doesn't matter if sandals, whatever. If you're online and you're just, in your pajamas and you don't have any shoes on, go to the closet and put a shoe on, okay? So what I'm telling you right now is I want you to hold the shoes. Now I want you to trade the shoe with, no, I'm kidding. I don't want you to do that. That would just be a little too icky and deep for some of you. But this is what I'm telling you. You feel awkward right now just holding your own shoe, going, that foot odor is terrible. All right, what I'm telling you is I'm talking about getting off the struggle bus of pretending, and you're having a struggle holding your shoe around a crowd of people. I'm just telling you, this thing isn't about how you feel. It's about what steps are you going to put into place to actually walk down the ramp of the struggle bus and get off. So here are two things that I want you to do and think about as you're holding your shoe. The first is I want you to read Romans 12 5 different times this week. Now, again, if you're new to the Bible, even if you're not, even if you're a guy like me who's been doing this for decades, what I'm telling you is this. The number one awesome tool for reading the Bible is called Google. You should write that down. And if you will Google this phrase right here, show me an easy way to read Romans 12 in the Bible, here's what's going to happen. The AI is going to come up and it's going to give you a breakdown of Romans chapter 12. You could do it right now and go, man, that's a good breakdown. Then if you scroll down a little bit, the first hit that you're going to have is from the easy English version of the Bible. It is a fantastic entry-level translation of Romans chapter 12. And you can push a button and it will even read it to you. Okay, I'm just telling you, it's right there. You're holding it in your pocket or your purse. It takes less than 4 minutes to read this chapter. There are 21 verses in it. And you read through, what I'm asking you to do is read through at least part of it 5 times this week. And here's what I'm getting to. You don't have to read the whole thing if you don't want to. Just start reading to it till something jumps out at you. And when it jumps out at you, practice praying something like whatever jumps out, go, okay, God, this part is really connecting with me today. This is a part I struggle with, or this is a positive thing. And so I want you to help me put this into practice. And then what I want you to do is if you get to a part that's a struggle, talk to a friend about it. Find somebody, go, look, I was reading this thing in the Bible. I know this is weird, but I want to talk to you about it. Help me put this into practice. So I want you to do that at least 5 times. Okay? Now, here's the thing. How are you going to remember to do this? Because here's what the whole thing is. I can tell you different things about what you need to do to set a reminder on your phone. And I can talk about getting a sticky note and putting it in. But what's going to happen is you're not going to remember any of this because this is what the reality, that's what goes on in your mind right there. Okay, that's going in some of your minds right now. You're not even listening to me. I mean, if you texted your friends right now and go, I'm at church and they're talking about porn and I can't keep my mind on what's even being said. All I'm telling you is that if that isn't happening to you now, it's going to happen to you by the time you get to your car after this service. So here's what I want you to do to remember. What are you going to do to remember this week? I want you to take your shoe and put it in your refrigerator. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking around. I mean this. I want you to put it in your refrigerator. Some of you are grossing out right now and go, I'm not going to put my shoe. Wash your shoe and put it in the refrigerator. If that still freaks out, put it inside of a Ziploc bag. If you have young kids, you can use a little shoe. It doesn't matter. Put it in there. Wrap it in saran wrap. Do something so that when you open the refrigerator, you could go to my house right now, open the refrigerator. I hadn't even talked to my wife this morning, but I guarantee you, she opened the refrigerator and go, what is a shoe doing in my refrigerator? Now, here's all I'm letting you know right now for real is I want you to be opening that. You're going to get orange juice or milk or creamer for your coffee or some snack or you're getting ready to cook, and that shoe is sitting there staring you. It's looking you. You're looking in the eyes of your shoe. Its tongue is hanging out. You're staring deep into its soul, and you're remembering. This guy told me I should be reading the Bible a little bit this week. I'm going to give that a shot and take a risk. All right, now you could set a reminder on your phone. You could use the sticky note for real, but put your shoe in the refrigerator. Then the second thing is this: choose to watch one of these 3 movies that I'm going to bring up that deal with how to quit pretending and begin to grow. And the first one is Inside Out 2. Okay, now the theme, I'm not sure this quote is directly in the movie, but this is how I capture Inside Out 2. Is I'm pretending to be a good person, but I'm not okay. I'm pretending to be a good person, but I'm not okay. This is available on Disney Plus. If you subscribe to that, you could buy it on Prime Video and other of these resources. The second one is one of the newest Marvel movies that came out, Thunderbolts. Here's how I capture that one. Let's stop pretending we are perfect superheroes. We are all losers. But when I look at you, I don't see your mistakes. That's why we need each other. A third option is K-pop demon hunters. Now, let me just say this right now. Some of you, again, are having a connection fit. You're coming to church, and you're recommending a movie with demon in it. Okay, watch one of the other 2 movies. Okay, or you could sit there and go, well, I don't even watching movies, this whole thing, it just makes you weird. Okay, then watch the 5th season of The Chosen about Jesus. Watch something that takes your mind. But K-pop demon hunters, listen, read that quote up there. We keep saying our faults and fears must never be seen, but if we keep hiding our shame, we will never heal and grow. Let me tell you about this movie. It has only been out 8 weeks. It came out June 20th. It is the second most popular English language film on Netflix ever. It is the #1 watched animated Netflix film ever. The soundtrack, the music from this, which is fantastic lyrics in this music, they have been downloaded globally 3 billion times with a B. 3 billion times. Now, there's lots of theories out there on why this movie is so good, but I'm telling you, I'm convinced the #1 thing is the deep message resonates with people. I'm fighting demons in my life, and the demons are the shame that I feel. So I'm just saying, watch 1 or 2 or 3 of these movies, preferably with somebody. Now, here's what I'm trying to say here. The Bible, this is what we believe here at Epic. The Bible is God's inspired word to us without any error. Now, movies are not God's inspired word without any error. So there's stuff in these movies, and every one of these movies that doesn't line up with what's in the Bible, but the fingerprints of God are all over these movies and some of the themes. So be reading the Bible, watching one of these movies, filter what you're reading in the Bible with what you see in the movie. Let the movies touch your emotions and the Bible guide your truth. Okay, now you can put your shoe back on so that you can walk it home and put it in the refrigerator. So let me tell you why this message is particularly urgent to me these days. My niece, Ellie Knight, went in for a regular doctor appointment this past December. Within weeks, she's diagnosed with a rare form of ovarian cancer and dies several months later. She was 24. At Thanksgiving, as far as she knew and any of us knew, she was fine. And by Easter, she was gone. Sudden, unexpected, shocking, and final. Now, God has given each one of us one life. That's how it works. And it's a life involving many trips on and off the struggle bus. And the more time we spend on the bus, the less time we spend living a life of real purpose and meaning. The reality is that my life and your life is going to end one day. And you and I don't know when or how. In the meantime, what Jesus promises is that we really can make those struggle bus trips much shorter and way less frequent, and we can really live life with real purpose. Do you want to find meaning in life? Then choose to do something to help you give up the pretend life. Stop pretending you're going to figure out how to solve this by yourself, because you just won't. Stop pretending everything with your family is all good, because it just isn't. Stop pretending following Jesus is easy, because it just isn't. Stop pretending you're a good person, because you know you're not. Stop pretending you're fine, because you just aren't. Again, the song by Warren Torn. I'm just tired of hiding me. But if you ever saw the cracks, would you still love me after that? I ain't proud, but I'm still breathing, still here, still barely believing that someday maybe you'll just see not who I show, but who I need to be. What I choose to do next is what matters the most. This week, put your shoe in the refrigerator. When you see it, you'll remember you committed a few minutes, 5 different days this week to live in Romans 12. Add watching one of the movies with somebody and choose to engage the challenge of stopping the pretend life. Let these things guide you to real life in Jesus with other people. Are you up for it? Let's pray together. Lord, I want to thank you that you reached through all the chaos in my life a lot of decades ago, and you got my attention. And I just don't know how you did it. Thanks for bringing that football coach to speak to me. I don't know where these people are online today. I don't know where these people are in this room, but you know where every single one of them are. You know the struggle bus they're on, and you can walk them off of it. So God, I pray that you would continue your transformational work and change the lives of every one of us. Take us through whatever we've got to face to make us like you. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.